Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 51. Liam's Machinations. After Elena dressed his wounds, Alaric stepped out of the carriage to check his subordinates. "How is everyone?" he asked while looking at Bernard. "Everyone is fine, my lord. Some of our soldiers are injured, but their injuries aren't fatal. They only need a few days of rest to recover," Bernard replied while staring at him with unmasked admiration. Despite being the heir of a noble household, Alaric didn't hesitate to place himself in the most dangerous position. Other heirs would have chosen to prioritize their safety if they were in that situation. Provide first aid to the injured and monitor their condition from time to time. Also, build a wagon big enough to fit all of them. You can use the spare tires of the carriage for the wagon, Alaric instructed. "Yes, my lord." Bernard acknowledged his command with a nod of his head. "You may go." After Bernard left to do his tasks, Warwick approached him with a solemn look. "My lord, how should we handle this matter?" This matter was big enough to destroy the alliance between House Paxley and House Silversword. If it wasn't handled well, it might even lead to a war. Alaric pondered deeply. "I can't let this matter slide. If I act like nothing happened, Liam would think that I'm a pushover. But how should I retaliate without ruining the friendship of the two noble households?" Warwick remained silent and calmly waited for his response. It was a difficult choice, so he wondered how Alaric would respond. After almost 5 minutes of silence, Alaric raised his head and muttered in a cold voice. "Once the wagon is built, we will head straight to North Pinetown and inform my father about the situation. House Paxley is definitely not involved with this. They will never do something that would damage the friendship of the two households. Which means that Liam is the sole culprit," he added. Warwick felt a chill when he saw his gaze. "I will follow your words, my lord." He lowered his head. Not long later, Chulmo came running towards him with an urgent look on his face. "My lord, I discovered the contract between Liam and the mercenary group. HM? Where is it?" This was crucial evidence that would prove Liam's direct involvement. "It's here, my lord." Chulmo handed him the piece of parchment paper he was holding. Alaric unrolled the parchment paper and read the contents. The document noted down the mission that Liam tasked the mercenary group with. It was even stamped by both parties, which made it legitimate evidence that could prove Liam's crime. "Just wait for me, Liam. I will let you live for a while. But mark my words, you won't have a good ending." Alaric rolled the parchment paper and kept it in his pocket. "Good job, Sir Chulmo." Alaric tapped the knight's shoulder. Without the document, it would have been difficult to seek justice. Chulmo grinned at him. "I'm glad that I found something useful. Continue searching their items. We might find something else." "Yes, my lord." Chulmo saluted and left to do what he had instructed. Under Chulmo's command, a few warriors rummaged through the mercenaries' items. Unfortunately, other than some money and their crude equipment, there was nothing of notable importance. A few hours later, the wagon was finally built. Alaric instructed the group to bring the injured to the wagon. Once everyone had settled down, the group marched towards the direction of Vale. Meanwhile, inside a room in House Paxley's main mansion, Liam sat on a chair as he stared at the cloudy night sky with a faint smile. "Those stupid followers of Agnes should be dead by now. It seems like nothing happened to you, Alaric. What a pity." If something had happened to Alaric, his entourage would have returned to Ryvad to investigate the incident. But since there were no signs of them, he was certain that Alaric was still alive. Thinking about this, he shook his head with a regretful look. "Well, at least I managed to eliminate Juva's mercenary group. Now, I have nothing to worry about once I inherit my father's property and position." Liam snickered at the success of his plan. "Ha ha ha ha." His evil laughter echoed within the confines of his room. On the 6th day of December, in the year 208 of the Estanian calendar, Alaric's group finally arrived at the entrance of North Pine Town. The mood was heavy and no one spoke throughout their return to the estate. At this moment, Lucas and Maria were happily waiting for them in front of the main mansion. Lucas was the first to notice them and he immediately saw their haggard faces. Sensing the change in his expression, Maria raised her eyebrows. "What happened?" she asked with a hint of worry. Lucas frowned as he muttered in response. "They are injured." "What?" Maria covered her mouth in shock. "What about our son? Is he all right?" Lucas nodded with a grim look. "He is fine, but he is also injured." "Oh my God! Just what happened out there?" Maria's eyelashes trembled. In the next moment, Alaric stepped out of the carriage with Elena closely following behind him. Seeing him covered in bandages, Maria immediately rushed to his side. "My son, are you all right?" Meanwhile, Lucas stood there unmoving, his eyes filled with intense coldness. Chapter 52. The Brain of House Silversword. Looking at Alaric's face, Lucas muttered, "Let's discuss this in my study." Alaric nodded in understanding. He then looked at his mother, squeezed her hand, and gave her a reassuring smile. "I'm all right, Mom. These are just minor cuts." Maria exhaled a long sigh. "Let's go to your father's study. I'd like to hear the situation as well." "All right." Alaric nodded. Letting her know what had happened wouldn't be an issue. She was also smarter than both him and his father combined, so she might offer a better solution. Elena quietly followed them. She could sense that something big was about to happen, but she tactfully remained silent. A moment later, they arrived at the study room. Alaric and Maria entered, while Elena remained outside. Lucas saw his wife entering with Alaric, but he didn't say anything. He eyed his son and pointed at the chair in front of his desk. "Sit down." Alaric obediently took his seat, while Maria sat next to him. With a deep look, Lucas muttered, "What happened?" Alaric furrowed his eyebrows as he recounted the whole situation. "When we were about to leave Rivad, Sir Warwick sensed. We deliberately led them to an open area to force them to come out. I don't want to see anyone get killed, so I decided to use an isolation tactic by forming a defensive formation centered around Sir Chulmo and Sir Bernard, while Sir Warwick and I would deal with the stronger mercenaries. In the end, we successfully eliminated the mercenaries, and we even managed to get evidence that helped us identify the person who hired the mercenary group." When he mentioned this, Lucas narrowed his eyes. "Who is it?" he asked in a flat tone. Alaric took out the parchment paper he had kept and handed it to his father. "This is a document signed by the leader of the mercenary group and the person who hired them. You will see his name right there." Lucas grabbed the parchment and began reading the contents. When he saw the name of the client, his eyebrows shot upwards in surprise. Maria saw this and immediately asked, "Who is it?" "I can't believe it," Lucas muttered as he handed the parchment to his wife. While Maria was reading the contents of the paper, Lucas stared at his son. "Do you think it was really done by him?" he asked in a low voice. Alaric nodded without hesitation. "I'm 100% convinced that it was him. The guy seemed to be unusually attracted to his sister, and he acted suspiciously every time I saw him." Annoyance was evident in his voice. Liam Paxley. Lucas had an impression of that guy. He was a lively kid who always wore a smile on his face. Lucas thought that he was a good kid, but from the looks of it, there was something dark about him. Maria put down the parchment. "He probably likes his younger sister. He must have sent those mercenaries to come for you out of jealousy. What a sickening thing." She had a disgusted look on her face. Hearing this, Lucas nodded in agreement. "That seems to be the case. I never thought that Nathan's second son is actually an abominable bastard," Lucas muttered as he leaned on his chair and rubbed his temples. The matter could lead to a serious conflict between both households. In his past life, Liam died right after Hershey was engaged to Alaric. No one knows the true cause of his death, and House Paxley was strangely silent about the incident. It was as if they had intentionally concealed the truth. What do you want to do? Lucas didn't want to offend House Paxley, but this was a matter that concerned his son's life and the honor of House Silversword. He couldn't just leave it be. I'll send someone to assassinate Dash. Alaric's words were suddenly cut off by his mother. Hold on. The father and son turned their gazes to her. Maria shook her head and said, There is no need to assassinate him. But Mom! Alaric frowned at her words. Listen to me first. Maria gave him a look. Alaric took a deep breath and decided to hear her out. The first thing we need to do is go to Ryvad and show this document to Baron Nathan. Once he learns the truth, we will have a justified reason to ask for compensation for the damages his son has caused, and Liam won't be able to reject if we demand for a trial by combat. Maria's words stunned both father and son. That's a sound plan. But what if Liam would deny the accusations and reject the trial? Alaric was fairly certain that Liam wouldn't admit his crimes that easily. He might do that, but Baron Nathan is not a foolish man. I know what kind of person he is. This document alone is enough to convict his son, so he would definitely agree to our demands. Maria replied, Yes, you're right, but this could still damage the relationship between our households. Lucas scrunched his eyebrows. Maria nodded. That's true, but... She suddenly smiled and said, There is a way to strengthen our alliance even after this incident. Lucas and Alaric stared deeply at her. They mentioned that their daughter is interested in our son. Why don't we send them a marriage proposal? Of course only on the premise that they agree to our demands. Maria snorted. Alaric stared at his mother in admiration. She had actually come up with that plan in just a short amount of time. All right, let's do as you say. So what should we do first? Lucas was also impressed with her idea. Chapter 53, Words of Affirmation. But before that, what do you think about that girl? Maria stared at Alaric. Alaric thought about Hershey as he answered. She is a beautiful and talented young lady. If it's her, then I'm not against the proposal. That's good to hear. Maria was satisfied with his response. Now, here's what we need to do. Maria told them about her plan, from who they would bring to Ryvad and to how they should act once they were there. She didn't miss any detail, even going as far as thinking of several countermeasures in case something fell through. That's the gist of it. Don't forget anything since we still need to discuss this with the warriors. Speaking of which, she turned her gaze to Alaric and said with a smile, Sir Henry has successfully become an elite knight yesterday. You should go and look for him later. You were the first person he wanted to see when he made his breakthrough. Hearing this, Alaric was pleasantly surprised. He thought that the old knight would need a few months to advance, but it seemed like he had underestimated Henry. I will visit him after cleaning myself up. Alaric couldn't wait to visit the old man and congratulate him. Then you should go. I will discuss the details with your mother. Just listen carefully once we talk about this with the knights. Lucas dismissed him with a light smile. All right, then I'll excuse myself first. Alaric stood up, bowed to them and left the study. Look at him go. He looks even more excited now than when he became a knight. Maria chuckled while shaking her head. Just leave him be. Sir Henry is like a grandfather to him. It's only natural for Alaric to feel happy about his advancement. That's true. Outside the study, Alaric saw Elena standing by the door with a bored look. Elena? Why are you still here? You should have returned to your room. He was inside the study for over an hour, so she must be tired. It's okay, my lord. I want to wait for you. Elena fidgeted as she lowered her head. Seeing her little movements, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and sighed. She is still affected by what happened in Ryvad. Alaric didn't expose her and gently grabbed her hand. Next time, you need to tell me if you ever feel tired, or if you are uncomfortable about something. The warmth of his hand was like a magical medicine that eased her nerves. Amen. She hummed in response. You should go and take a shower. We will visit Sir Henry later. The girl lifted her head and asked, Why? Did something happen to Sir Henry? Yes, but it's a good thing. You will know later. The two parted ways. Alaric headed to his private bathroom, which was beside his bedroom, while Elena headed to the maidservant's public bathhouse. Inside the bathroom, Alaric removed the bandages and started cleaning his wounds. He then washed himself using the scented soap and dried his wet body with a clean cloth. Man, this thing really smells good. I should check on how the store is doing once I have some free time. Alaric stepped out of the bathroom and went to his room to change into a set of casual clothes. While he was combing his hair with his fingers in front of the mirror, he heard a series of knocks on the door. "My lord, it's me." Elena's voice drifted into his ears. "You may come in." Creak. Now dressed in a new-made uniform, Elena stepped inside his room. Alaric glanced at her through the mirror and noticed that her hair was still wet. "Elena, your hair is still wet. Let me help you with that." He turned around, grabbed a cloth, and approached her. "There's no need to trouble you, my lord. I can do it by myself." Elena grabbed the cloth from his hand, but she realized that she was unable to take it from him. "It's all right, Elena. You always do it for me, so let me do the same for you." Alaric gently grabbed her hand and pulled her in front of the mirror. Elena felt shy, but she didn't reject him. This was Alaric's first time doing this for someone else, so he was a bit clumsy. Seeing his serious face through the mirror, Elena giggled. Alaric stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Did you just laugh?" "No, I didn't." Elena shook her head while holding back her laughter. Alaric smiled wryly. After patting her hair dry, he grabbed a comb and started combing her hair. Elena didn't say anything and just watched his face through the mirror. At this moment, Alaric's voice echoed in her ears. "Elena, my parents want me to marry Hershey to solidify the alliance between both our households." Elena remained silent at his words. She already knew that this would happen after she saw Hershey. She was the most beautiful woman Elena had ever seen. She was also talented in painting and tea-making, and she was also a smart woman. Elena felt that Hershey was a perfect match for her lord. That was her honest thought after meeting her. "I agreed with their decision," Alaric added. "Why are you telling me this?" Elena asked. Alaric continued combing her hair as he replied. "I just felt that I should inform you." Elena turned around and lifted her head to look at him. "You don't need to feel guilty, my lord. I understand your difficulties, and I know that this is also for the best of the town. But please, don't forget me, my lord. I will always be here for you." Alaric grabbed her shoulders and embraced her tightly. "I know, Elena. Thank you for always taking care of me. You will always have a special place in my heart." His words made her feel a mixture of emotions. After some time, Elena broke free from his embrace and smiled at him. "We should get going, my lord." "You're right." Alaric chuckled as he nodded his head. Chapter 54. Observing the progress of the trainees. The two headed to Henry's house, which was located a few hundred meters away from the main mansion, but they didn't get far when they spotted the very person they were looking for walking towards them in his standard knight uniform. "My lord!" The old knight looked visibly excited upon seeing him, but when he saw Alaric's wounds, he frowned. What happened? He was resting in his house when they returned, so he didn't know what had happened. Alaric smiled and shook his head. "It's a long story. I'll tell you the details later." He quickly changed the topic. "Anyway, I heard that you've become an elite knight. Congratulations." The old knight smiled. "It's only because I had the beast soul crystal. If it weren't for that, it would have taken me years before I could achieve a breakthrough. Thanks to you, I saved plenty of time." "I'm really grateful, my lord." Alaric chuckled. "Like I said, you deserve that reward, Sir Henry. By the way, Elena also came here to congratulate you on your breakthrough." Alaric turned his head and winked at Elena. The girl was flustered, but she quickly stepped forward to congratulate the old knight. "Congratulations on your advancement, Sir Henry." The old knight grinned. "Thank you, Miss Elena. Oh, please, just call me by my name." Elena was overwhelmed by how the old knight was formally speaking to her. "That won't do. You are a special person in this household, Miss Elena. Everyone knows that." The old knight chuckled. Elena blushed at his words. She understood what he was implying and it made her embarrassed. We should talk somewhere more comfortable. Why don't we head to the training ground? There are plenty of seats there. I'm about to do my daily training anyway, Alaric suggested. Sounds good. I'm also on my way there to observe the training of the new recruits. Henry nodded. What about you, Elena? Will it be all right with you? Alaric glanced at her. Huh?
Yes.
I will follow you wherever you want to go, my lord. Elena didn't expect him to ask for her opinion, so she almost stuttered. In that case, let's go. I also want to check the progress of the new recruits. It's been a while since they started training. Some of them should be close to becoming a knight apprentice, Alaric said as he took the lead. The trio headed to the training ground under the curious gazes of the servants. When they arrived, they saw a group of young warriors dressed in their training clothes, wielding their wooden weapons with synchronized movements. The person responsible for overseeing their training for the day was Rigger. He was quite strict, so the recruits were extra careful so as not to upset him. Rigger was the first to notice their presence. He immediately approached them and bowed. Greetings, my lord. He then cupped his fists at Henry. Sir Henry. The old knight returned his greeting by cupping his fists, while Alaric simply nodded his head. How are the recruits doing? Alaric asked while searching for Rasmus's figure among the trainees. They are doing pretty well for newbies. This batch is better than the last group. 2 of them even showed exemplary results. Rigger announced proudly. As one of the trainers, he was pleased by their performance. Oh! Alaric's interest was piqued. He wondered if he was talking about the same people he was thinking. The old knight also showed interest in this matter, and even Elena was the same. Which of them are you talking about? Alaric asked while rubbing his chin. Rigger beamed as he replied. It's Rasmus and Renanti. Do you want me to call them? Renanti? I don't remember someone like that among the exceptional young knights in my past life. Please call them over. I'd like to closely observe their progress. Alaric nodded. All right. Rigger went back to the trainees and summoned the 2 he had mentioned. He then brought them to Alaric. My lord, it's them. This one is Rasmus and this guy is Renanti. Rigger proudly introduced the top trainees. Alaric turned his gaze at the 2. Rasmus looked completely different compared to when he first met him at the orphanage. He had grown some muscles and he also looked a few centimeters taller. He had even trimmed his long hair, which made him look more like a warrior. On the other hand, Renanti was a complete stranger to Alaric. He looked a bit older than Rasmus and was probably 20 years old. He had long wavy black hair and a pair of cold-looking onyx eyes. He was also quite tall at over 190 centimeters, and his physique was the most athletic among the recruits. Greetings, Lord Alaric. Rasmus and Renanti greeted him with a light bow. Alaric nodded to them and said, You 2 showed the best results, so you must be properly rewarded. Give them more tonics to help them strengthen their bodies. He reminded Rigger. I'll do as you, my lord. What are you 2 standing there for? Go and thank Lord Alaric. Rigger glared at the 2. Hearing this, they immediately thanked Alaric. Thank you for the reward, my lord. Continue working hard, and you will receive more rewards. Alaric smiled and tapped their shoulder. We will do our best, my lord. All right, you should go back to your training. Don't mind us. Alaric waved his hand and sent Rigger a knowing look. Rigger understood his intentions and left with Rasmus and Renanti. As they walked away, Rasmus turned his head and took another look at Alaric. It seems like Lord Alaric went through another battle again. Just when can I go with him? He whispered upon seeing the fresh wounds on Alaric's arms. Rigger snorted when he heard his remarks. If you want to join Lord Alaric in battle, you better work harder. With your current strength and skill level, you will only be able to serve as an ordinary guard. Rasmus lowered his head and clenched his fists. Just give me a little bit more time, my lord. Chapter 55, Josephus Silversword. After Alaric's daily mission, a servant came to the training ground and informed him as well as the knights about when the meeting will be held. A meeting, huh? Is this about your recent visit to Rivad, my lord? Henry curiously stared at Alaric. The latter still hadn't told him how he got his wounds. Yes, pretty much. Alaric nodded with a serious look. Then I should take my leave first. I can't go to the meeting hall covered in sweat. Henry chuckled while shaking his head. All right. We'll see you later, Sir Henry. See you later, my lord. The old man bowed to him and left. An hour later, Alaric headed to the meeting hall. He told Elena to get some rest so the girl wasn't with him this time. When he entered the spacious hall, he saw the knights and the elite knights of the household seated before a long table. Among them was his uncle, Charles Silversword, who was leisurely chatting with a young warrior sitting on the chair to his left. As if sensing his arrival, Charles turned his head and waved at him enthusiastically. Alaric, come here and sit beside your uncle. I'd like to introduce you to someone. Alaric was disgusted upon seeing him, but he maintained a cool appearance. He decided to play along with his uncle. Yes, my lord. Alaric took a seat on the empty chair beside Charles. Alaric, do you still remember him? Charles pointed at the young warrior beside him. Alaric stared at the young warrior with a calm expression. How could I forget the face of my cousin? Of course. We met a few times when we were young. Alaric responded to his uncle while nodding at the young warrior. He looked like he was in his late teens, but he was actually over 20 years old. He had a slender physique much like his father. However, unlike the men of House Silversword who had striking gray hair, Josephus had blonde hair which he inherited from his mother. Charles grinned and whispered to his ears. Thanks to the herbs I got from you, Josephus became a knight. Alaric was taken aback. Congratulations, Josephus. Alaric had mixed feelings about this cousin of his. In his past life, Josephus had never become a knight. He had always been stuck as a knight apprentice, which made Charles very disappointed in him. Josephus worked even harder to meet his father's expectations, but his efforts weren't rewarded. He was still unable to advance, which left him depressed. When Charles took over the Baron's position after Lucas's death, Josephus committed suicide, but the reason for his suicide was kept a secret. Josephus scratched his head in embarrassment. Thank you, my lord. If it weren't for the dragon-tail fern, I wouldn't have enough mana to advance. Looking at his honest and shy face, Alaric was baffled. Just why did you hang yourself, Josephus? Just what pushed you to end your own life? This matter was one of the few things that remained unanswered even after Alaric's death. I hope you're not like your father, my dear cousin. While he was deep in his thoughts, the door sprung open as Maria and Lucas stepped in. Everyone immediately stood up from their seats the moment they arrived. Greetings, my lord. Greetings, my lady. Lucas scanned everyone's faces and saw Alaric sitting beside his uncle. He found it unusual since he felt that Alaric didn't like Charles. However, he didn't say anything and just calmly took his seat. Lucas cleared his throat and spoke. Everyone, I gathered you all here to inform you about what happened to the people we sent to Rivad. I guess some of you are already aware of what happened, but for the sake of those who don't know anything, I will say it once again. Everyone adjusted their posture as they listened closely. Lucas recounted what he had heard from Alaric and the rest of the warriors who were sent to Rivad. When the knights heard this, they were furious. How dare they attack the heir of House Silversword? They must be tired of living. Charles slapped his hand on the table. Seeing this, Alaric sneered inwardly. Pretentious bastard. Meanwhile, the other knights also expressed their anger. I can't believe that the second son of House Paxley would do something like this. The hall became noisy as everyone expressed their rage. Silence! Lucas's indifferent voice resonated in their ears, making everyone shut their mouths. Maria knew that it was her turn to speak. This is what we have decided to do. Maria told them about her plan. It was more detailed than what they had discussed earlier. We need a show of force to pressure House Paxley, so we need to send some of our elite knights to Rivad. Are there any volunteers? Maria swept her gaze at the people inside the hall. I will go. The newly advanced elite knight, Henry, was the first to volunteer. He looked incredibly furious by the look on his face. Maria nodded at the old man to show her appreciation. I will go too. Charles smiled as he raised his arm. Alaric narrowed his eyes, wondering what his uncle was up to this time. Please sign me up, my lady. I was with Lord Alaric when the attack happened. I must see this to the end. Warwick raised his hand with a cold look. Thank you. Maria nodded to Warwick. Now, I will announce who among the knights will join in the trip to Rivad. Alaric, Aldrin, Bernard, Chulmo, Rigger, Arthur, and Josephus. Including the 3 elite knights, the 7 of you will lead 30 of our warriors to Rivad. Do you have any questions? Chapter 56. Preparations before departure. What if someone will attack North Pine Town while most of our skilled warriors are away? Someone asked with a concerned look. That wouldn't be an issue. As long as there's no disaster-grade monster, nothing will happen to the town. Besides, I'm already thinking of hiring someone who can guarantee the safety of the town and the estate. Lucas spoke confidently. Everyone was curious to know who he was talking about, but it didn't seem like Lucas had the intention of telling them, so no one asked. Are there more questions? At this moment, Henry raised his hand and asked, My lord, who will represent us for the trial by combat? Hearing this, everyone perked their ears as they stared at Lucas. Who is the strongest knight in the household? Lucas muttered while smiling faintly at them. Everyone turned their gazes to Alaric. They had already accepted the fact that Alaric was stronger than them. Even in the surrounding cities, it would be difficult to find someone who could defeat him. It looks like we all have the same idea. Lucas chuckled. My lord, wouldn't it be dangerous for Lord Alaric? Unexpectedly, Charles expressed his worry about the decision. He continued, I'm aware that he is powerful, but accidents happen in battle, especially in a trial by combat where everyone puts their life on the line. A few people nodded at his words, clearly in agreement with him. Alaric was the only heir of House Silversword. If something happened to him, there would be no one to succeed Lucas's position. Lucas didn't respond immediately. He looked at his son and asked his opinion. What do you think, Alaric? How confident are you? All eyes gathered on Alaric as soon as the Baron uttered those words. Sensing everyone's eyes on him, Alaric remained calm. If it was anyone else, they might not be able to bear the pressure of their expectations. However, this little bit of pressure was nothing to someone who had experienced a large-scale war. With an indifferent expression, Alaric responded. As long as the enemy is not an elite knight, I can guarantee my victory. Everyone may rest assured. You just need to ensure that no one will interfere with the trial. The veteran warriors were amazed by his composure and unwavering courage. Yes, my lord. We will do our best to ensure the fairness of the trial. The warriors replied in unison. Charles narrowed his eyes. Alaric was already gaining their support when he only recently became a knight, and this made him feel threatened. I should dispose of him while it is still early. This thought crossed his mind. Good. Now that we have decided on our representative for the trial, you guys should leave and make your preparations for tomorrow's trip. Lucas dismissed them. The next day, Alaric woke up early to do his daily routine. No one was in the training ground when he arrived, so the place was unusually quiet. Only the occasional chirping of the birds and the buzzing sounds of insects could be heard in the background. Without further ado, Alaric started doing his exercises. 100 push-ups ballot box with check.
100 sit-ups afkrydsningsfelt med markering.
100 pull-ups ballot box with check. 10 kilometers run ballot box with check. Soon it was time for his sword exercises. 100 vertical slashes ballot box with check. 100 diagonal slashes ballot box with check. 100 horizontal slashes ballot box with check. 100 stabs ballot box with check. At the final stab, the cyan screen appeared in front of him. You received 10 battle points. You received 1 EXP. You received 1 stat point. Alaric Silversword, Knight, EXP, 371/500. Potential, B. Traits, horseback riding, C. Swordsmanship, SSS. Close combat, C. Archery, F. Hunting, E. Tracking F. Sixth sense, F. Strength, 100. Stamina, 34 plus. Agility, 43 plus. Vitality, 27 plus. Endurance, 42 plus.
Mana, 13.
Battle points, 2560. Stat points, 34. Requirements for next advancement, 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. He now had 34 stat points. He felt tempted to use them all, but he refrained from doing it. Just then, he suddenly heard a series of footsteps. Step, step, step. He closed the sign screen and looked at the person who had arrived. My lord! Rasmus didn't expect to see Alaric this early in the morning. From his sweaty face, he could tell that Alaric was probably training. I heard that they would leave again today. He actually woke up early just to not skip his training. Lord Alaric is truly different from everyone else. No wonder his strength is already formidable at his age. Rasmus's eyes flashed with veneration. Rasmus, what are you doing here so early in the morning? Alaric was also surprised to see him. Rasmus laughed in embarrassment as he replied, I came here to practice my swordsmanship. Alaric smiled at his words. I see. Your commitment is commendable, but you shouldn't overdo your training. Enough rest is also necessary in building a strong body. Thank you for your advice, my lord. I will keep it in mind. Rasmus lowered his head to express his gratitude. Then I won't disturb you. I'll take my leave first. Alaric tapped his shoulder, turned around, and walked away. Looking at his back, Rasmus shouted, Be careful on your trip, my lord. Hearing this, Alaric waved his hand without looking back. A few hours later, the entourage for the trip assembled in front of the main mansion, bidding farewell to their families. Alaric was also there to say goodbye to his parents and Elena. Elena wanted to come with them, but Alaric didn't agree this time. Things could get dangerous, so it was better for Elena to remain at the estate. For this trip, Alaric decided to ride on a horse to make the journey faster. He was also appointed as the leader of the group, which everyone unanimously agreed. Is everyone ready? Alaric swept his gaze at the warriors, looking carefully at the equipment they were carrying. Check the equipment and the supplies. Make sure that we have brought all the things we need. He reminded them with a stern gaze. Yes, my lord. The warriors did as instructed and began to inspect everything. After ensuring that they hadn't forgotten anything, Alaric took one last look at the people they would leave behind and shouted, Let's go! Chapter 57. A shocking encounter. Because of the size of their entourage, the soldiers garrisoned at the borders of Vale stopped them for an inspection. Alaric didn't want to cause trouble, so he told his subordinates to go along with the inspection. Luckily for them, one of the inspectors happened to be Anthony, the current commander of Vale's armed forces. Lord Alaric? Anthony was surprised to see him. How have you been, Sir Anthony? Alaric cupped his fists while smiling lightly at him. Hiding his surprise, Anthony peered at the equipment strapped on their horses and replied, I have been well, my lord. Thank you for asking. He then cleared his throat and asked with a serious tone, Can you tell me where you are headed to, my lord? We are headed to Rivad. You don't need to be alarmed, Sir Anthony. Alaric chuckled when he saw how cautious they were, but he also understood their situation. Hearing this, the warriors behind Alaric furrowed their eyebrows, which made Anthony's subordinates unconsciously hold the handle of their weapons. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Alaric immediately raised his hand, signaling his people not to cause any trouble. Anthony also warned his men not to be impulsive. If a battle was to break out, none of them would survive. He was sure of it. All right, but please don't ask us any questions on the way. Alaric didn't reject his request. He was aware that Anthony was only doing this to keep an eye on them. Anthony nodded. You can rest assured, my lord. I will make sure that my men won't speak a word about this. Then we will be in your care. Alaric smiled lightly. Anthony couldn't believe that he was actually intimidated by a knight who was a few decades younger than him. Although Alaric defeated him before, It was only an unofficial match where using mana wasn't allowed. He was confident that he could win against Alaric if they were to use mana. At least that was what he believed. Under the watchful eyes of Vale's garrison guards, Alaric's group traveled along the snow-covered road leading to Rivad. No one spoke along the way, making the atmosphere quite nerve-wracking. When Alaric's group was about to leave Vale's borders, Anthony raised his hand and signaled his men to stop following them. He then bowed to Alaric and said, "Thank you for your cooperation, my lord. Please forgive me if this may have offended you." Hearing this, Alaric waved his hand nonchalantly. "Till we meet again, Sir Anthony." Anthony watched as they disappeared into the distance. "It looks like something big is going to happen in Rivad. Sir, should we report this to the officials?" one of his subordinates asked. Anthony shook his head. "There's no need. Interfering with House Silversword's matters won't do us any good. Let's just keep this under wraps. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." Later that afternoon, the snow is getting thicker. The horses might get sick if we continue. Alaric noticed that the horses had slowed down because of the thick pile of snow that filled the road. "Let's take a short break here." He commanded the group to stop. "Build a big fire that is enough to warm our bodies and our horses," he instructed. Everyone jumped down from their horses and divided themselves into small groups to efficiently do more tasks. One group volunteered to gather firewood, another one volunteered to scout the location, etc. No one remained idle, including Alaric. He joined the group that was responsible for gathering firewood. "It's so cold out here." He thought about the vagrants who had to live on the outskirts of Vale. There were people who refused to live in the city and chose to live in the secluded parts of the forest outside of Vale. Most of them couldn't afford the living expenses in the city, so they could only build their homes outside its influence. Many of them will die from the cold. Alaric sighed while thinking about those people. It took him more than 10 minutes to gather some usable firewood. Most had already been covered in snow and were too wet to be used. Alaric returned to the campsite to deliver the firewood he had gathered. However, just as he was about to turn around, he sensed a slight fluctuation of mana in a certain direction. Did I sense it wrong? He narrowed his eyes as he peered into the depths of the forest, but the heavy snowfall obscured his vision. Should I take a look? Driven by his curiosity, Alaric put down the firewood he had gathered and followed the direction where he last sensed the weird fluctuations of mana. He remained cautious as he headed deeper into the forest. His hand was resting on the hilt of his sword. If he sensed a sign of danger, he was prepared to draw his sword. In the next moment, he saw something moving underneath the snow. Is it an animal? Alaric cautiously approached, but upon getting closer, he discovered that the thing buried in the snow wasn't an animal. An elf. His eyes froze in shock. Alaric's first thought was to leave immediately, but a weak voice drifted into his ears. Help me. The voice was barely audible, but it was definitely the elf who had spoken. Alaric hesitated for a moment. Damn it. He carefully walked towards the elf, eyeing the surroundings for any potential traps. After making sure that there were no hidden traps, he immediately got down and dug the elf who was buried in the snow. As soon as he dug out the elf, Alaric was momentarily stunned. How beautiful! It was a face that surpassed the realms of humanity, one with an ethereal beauty that almost seemed like she was a goddess who had gone down to the mortal world. She's injured. Alaric noticed a patch of red on her abdomen. Chapter 58. Soul Mark. In her present state, she won't survive the cold. I should help her bandage her wounds first. Alaric lifted the elf and carried her inside a hollowed tree to keep her warm. After placing her down, he took off his fur coat and draped it over her body for additional warmth. At this moment, he saw her long eyelashes fluttering, revealing a pair of cyan-colored eyes. Even the groaning sound she made was very enchanting. After making sense of her surroundings, she realized that there was an unfamiliar human in front of her. Her eyes widened in fear. She wanted to stand up and push him away, but she lost all strength as the pain in her abdomen finally registered. Hiss! She hissed in pain while keeping a cautious eye on the human. Seeing her like this, Alaric smiled bitterly in his heart. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I just happened to discover you when I sensed an abnormal fluctuation of mana. He explained himself. The elf didn't believe his words. How can I trust the words of a human? Alaric sighed, feeling slightly annoyed by her prejudice. Still, he tried to reason with her in a calm voice. Look here, Miss Elf. You were the one who asked for help, so I kindly offered my hand. If I had bad intentions, I would have done it from the start. The elf's expression relaxed a bit upon hearing his words. Wait here for me. I'll go and get something to bandage your wounds. In the meantime, apply pressure on your wound. I'll be back soon. Alaric didn't wait for her to respond and stepped out of the hollowed tree before rushing back to the camp. The elf sat there in silence. Can I really trust him? She didn't want to place her trust in a stranger, especially a human. However, given her condition, she had no choice but to believe in him. It's so cold. She lowered her head and pressed her abdomen. Meanwhile, Alaric hurried into the camp with the firewood he had gathered earlier. My lord! Aldrin was surprised to see him running in a hurry. I have no time to explain. Go and get me some bandages and medicine for stab wounds. Alaric instructed with a serious look. Aldrin was curious, but he didn't dare ask when he saw his stern gaze. Yes, my lord. While he was looking for the first aid kit, Alaric went to deliver the firewood he had gathered and asked the warriors to quickly make a fire. A moment later, Aldrin came running towards him with a leather sack in his hand. My lord, I have gathered what you requested. Good. Stay here and don't mention this to anyone. Alaric warned him before leaving in haste. Aldrin stared at his figure, wondering what had happened. What's going on? He muttered. By the time Alaric returned to the hollowed tree, he found out that the elf had already lost consciousness. He quickly got down to check her pulse. When he sensed the faint beating of her heart, he heaved a sigh of relief. He then laid her down and rolled her shirt up to give him a clearer view of her wound. It's not too deep, but she lost too much blood, and the cold weather is also making her condition worse. Alaric opened the leather sack and took out a handful of medicine paste. He then smeared it on her wound. This medicine paste was made from the same herb he used to stop Rigger's bleeding back in the cave at the Red-Toed Gorge. He then wrapped her abdomen with bandages. After taking care of her fatal wound, he inspected her body to see if there were more wounds he hadn't seen earlier. There are some minor cuts, but they aren't fatal. Alaric smeared a small amount of the medicine paste on her cuts. That should do it. Now what should I do with this elf? Leaving her here wasn't an option since her body was still weak after losing a lot of blood. But taking her back to the camp was also troublesome. Elves were beautiful creatures with innate abilities to control mana. Unlike humans who struggled to interact with mana, elves were born with the gift that allowed them to command mana at will. There was also a higher number of beast soul warriors among them. Thinking about this, Alaric rolled up her sleeve, which revealed a black ring-like mark on her wrist. As expected, she has a soul mark. This was a sign that this elf was a beast soul warrior. People born with soul marks were capable of extracting the abilities of monsters by absorbing their beast soul crystals. Her soul mark is still inactive. Alaric thought while inspecting her soul mark closely. It had no pattern, which means she was yet to absorb a beast soul crystal. I didn't expect that the first beast soul warrior that I would encounter is actually an elf. Alaric chuckled while shaking his head. Suddenly, he noticed that the elf was shivering from the cold, which made his eyes sink. There's no choice. I need to bring her to the camp and keep her close to the fire. Alaric grabbed a handful of dirt and smeared it all over her face to hide her beauty. He also wrapped her head with a cloth to hide her distinctive long ears and snow-white hair. After making sure that everything that shouldn't be seen was properly covered, he lifted the elf and carried her back to the camp. How should I explain this to them without making them suspicious? When he arrived at the camp, everyone curiously stared at the person he was carrying. My lord, who is that person? Henry approached with furrowed eyebrows. He could sense the mana in this person's body. Alaric kept his cool and responded with a calm voice. She is a vagrant I found. She was dying from the cold, so I brought her here to give her a chance to live. Chapter 59. Ivana. A vagrant? Huh? Charles raised his eyebrows as he stared at the figure who was almost covered from head to foot. Only her eyes and a small portion of her face were visible. I can sense mana from that woman's body. Is he hiding something? Charles's lips curved upwards as he stood up. He then approached Alaric and reminded him with a stern gaze. My nephew, you should prioritize our task. Bringing that woman would only delay us. Besides, we don't know what kind of person she is. What if she is a thief or a criminal? His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. Alaric glanced indifferently at him and responded. I understand your concern, uncle. I will take full responsibility for her actions and I will make sure that our trip won't be delayed. You can rest assured. Charles stared deeply at him and shrugged his shoulders. All right, I won't say anything more. Just keep an eye on her. Alaric nodded without saying anything. Seeing that he had no intention to chat, Charles awkwardly tapped Alaric's shoulder and went to a spot closer to the bonfire. There is definitely something about that woman. I don't think my dear nephew would take in some random stranger. But what is special about her? Charles thoughtfully watched as Alaric brought the woman closer to the bonfire. Unlike Charles, the warriors and the knights showed no interest in the vagrant woman. They were common outside of Vale, and some would even find their way to North Pine Town. After casting curious glances at her, they quickly lost interest. They trusted Alaric's decision, so no one questioned him or expressed any disagreement. After laying her down near the fire, Alaric beckoned to his cousin, Josephus. Josephus was a bit surprised by his sudden call, but he immediately came to his side and asked, What can I do for you, my lord? Form a small team to hunt a big game. Make sure that it's big enough for everyone. Alaric instructed. Hearing this, Josephus nodded his head. Yes, my lord. You may leave. Josephus turned around and left. Although it was just a minor hunting task, he was happy that he finally had something to do. While his cousin was hunting their next meal, Alaric busied himself with making a nutritious medicinal extract for the wounded elf. He learned the concoction method from his superior, who was a transcendent knight. When he recalled that grumpy old man, his lips curved upwards. I wonder what you are doing right now, Marquis Tyrone Agalsitar. Just like Lucas, Tyrone was also an expert in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Despite his advanced age, no warrior dared to underestimate him. At this moment, the injured elf opened her heavy eyelids and found herself in an unfamiliar environment surrounded by humans. More humans. Her eyes dilated as she felt a surge of anxiety. Just stay down and relax. I didn't tell anyone about your identity, so you will be safe for the time being. A familiar voice drifted into her ears. It's him. She turned with difficulty, and it was then that she found out that her head was wrapped in a cloth. Furthermore, she also felt a weird sensation on her face, as if something was smeared on it. Looking at her uncomfortable expression, Alaric muttered, Just bear with it. I need to hide your features, so I covered your face in mud and wrapped your head with a cloth. Don't move around too much if you don't want your ears to be exposed. The elf didn't say anything and just lightly nodded her head. Those people are my subordinates. But not all of them are loyal to me, so you need to be careful not to expose your identity. Alaric reminded in a stern voice. Thank you. A weak voice came out of her mouth. Alaric nodded and moved closer to her. In his hand was a bowl filled with the medicinal extract he had concocted earlier. You need to drink this. It can help you increase your vitality. The elf glanced suspiciously at the foul-smelling liquid inside the bowl. This is medicine. It's not poison, right? Alaric saw through the disgust in her eyes. That was the same expression he showed when he first tasted this medicinal extract. If you want to recover quickly, then you better drink this. Now open your mouth and don't make this difficult for me. Alaric grabbed a wooden spoon and dipped it into the medicinal liquid. After taking a spoonful of the liquid, he brought it to her lips. The revolting smell made her flinch, but under Alaric's cold, watchful eyes, She could only reluctantly open her mouth. Gulp. She held her breath as she swallowed down the so-called medicine. It was bitter and even a bit spicy, a taste that almost made her throw up. Alaric helped her sit up to make her more comfortable. You need to drink all of this. Don't even think of spitting a single drop. Amen. She hummed in response. A moment later, Josephus's small hunting group finally returned with a huge wild boar. Good job. Alaric praised him, making the latter smile in embarrassment. Alaric then asked someone to make a soup using the wild boar's meat. Surprisingly, Arthur volunteered for the task, but it was a tough job for one man, so Alaric asked for 2 more volunteers to help him in skinning the boar. The skinning and the cooking process took more than a few hours, but everyone patiently waited. Who wouldn't want a hot soup in this kind of freezing weather? Soon, the hot boar meat soup was finally served. Hey, this is your share. Eat it while it's still hot. Alaric handed a bowl of the boar meat soup to the elf. The elf took the bowl and muttered, "It's Ivana, not hey. HM? What did you say?" Alaric glanced at her in surprise, pretending like he didn't hear her. The elf ignored him and blew air into the soup to make it less hot. Alaric chuckled and watched her quietly. Ivana, that's not a bad name. Chapter 60. Delayed because of the snowstorm. My name is Alaric, but you should follow how everyone addresses me, so that you won't attract their attention. Alaric muttered while looking at the elf. I also told them that you are a vagrant, so we'll keep it that way while you're with us. He added. I understand. Ivana nodded indifferently. Although she looked dirty right now, she couldn't hide the grace in her every move, as if it was a habit that she had practiced for many years. Did you get those wounds from a human? Alaric probed. The elf's shoulder trembled upon hearing his words. Seeing her like that, Alaric sighed. You don't have to answer it. For a young elf like her, it must have been a terrible experience that left her traumatized. I shouldn't have asked her. We will be leaving soon. Why don't you stay with the group while you are still recovering? Once we complete our task in Rivad, I will send you back to your home. Alaric suggested. This was the best he could do for her. Ivana didn't respond and just quietly ate the boar meat soup. Alaric waited for a while, but when he realized that she had no intention of speaking, he took a deep breath and let out a sigh while shaking his head. He then stood up and announced to the group. We will depart at once after everyone is done eating their meal. Yes, my lord. The warriors responded in unison. The snowstorm was getting worse and they might be stranded if they don't leave soon. The horses had rested enough and everyone had already filled their bellies with the hot boar soup. It was time to resume the journey. They didn't bother to clean up the mess. Everything would be buried in snow in a few hours. Prepare to depart, Alaric shouted to the group. The warriors immediately packed their stuff and hopped on their horses. While they were preparing to leave, Alaric walked towards the elf and squatted in front of her. We're leaving now. Hearing this, Ivana nervously raised her head. Please take me with you, she muttered in a quivering voice. We don't have a carriage, so it would be a bumpy trip. Are you sure? Alaric found her pitiful, so he was willing to help her. Riding on a horse would open her wounds, which might worsen her injuries. Ivana nodded. You're the only human I can trust. It hadn't been long since they met, but she felt like she could place her trust in him. He was her last hope to return to her family. All right, let's go. Alaric stood up and reached out his hand. Looking at his face, Ivana prayed in her heart. Please, I hope I'm making the right choice by following this human. Ivana grabbed his hand and allowed him to lift her. When the warriors saw that Alaric was planning to take the vagrant along, nobody said anything. They believed that he only pitied the poor woman. However, one person had a different opinion regarding this vagrant woman. It was Charles. Is he really planning to bring that woman with us? He felt that it was suspicious that his nephew was willing to go so far for someone he had only met a few hours ago. Although he was curious, he didn't reveal his thoughts. This is making me strangely excited. Charles pulled his eyes away from them and grinned. The group continued their journey amid the heavy snow. The road was becoming more difficult to navigate because of the thick fog. If it weren't for Henry, they might have been lost in the fog. At this moment, Henry urged his horse to move closer to Alaric. At this rate, we might not make it to Ryvad tomorrow, my lord. The sky is also getting darker, so I think we should find a place to set up camp, the old man suggested while looking at the darkening sky. Alaric agreed with the old man, so he immediately instructed the group to find a place to set up camp. An hour later, someone found a narrow cave and reported it to Alaric. In a place where everything was covered in snow, a cave was a good option to build their camp. That's where I found the cave, my lord. A warrior pointed in a certain direction where a hill stood. Alaric followed his gaze and saw a cave underneath the hill. It wasn't big, but it was. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.